Hi everyone, I'm Any New Province, and this week we're playing Grixis Midrange for Net Benefits, the series where we explore the benefits of net decking in Pauper. When we think of midrange in Pauper, we're probably thinking along the lines of Boros Monarch that has a lot of powerful removal spells and draws a ton of cards. Tauto Isle, however, decided to go Grixis to get their 5-0 with midrange. It gives them access to tons of powerful removal spells, really good threats, and even better card filtering. Alright, let's start by looking at the threats we're going to commit in the mid game and take over the board. This package starts with Germ Daddy. The Germ Father costs 6 and a black for a 5/5 with Delve, which means you can exile cards from your graveyard to help pay for Gurmag Angler's mana cost. It's one of the best threats in the format. It can block like crazy, and if the board's empty, it's going to kill your opponent in a hurry. Next up is Muldrifter, my favorite Pauper creature. It costs 4 and a blue for a 2/2 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. You can also evoke it, which means you can pay 2 and a blue to cast Muldrifter. You still get to draw the cards, but you have to sacrifice it. In a deck with this much interaction, you're not really at risk of dying super early. You just kill all of your opponent's creatures, so it's pretty reasonable to kill them with a Muldrifter by attacking in the air for 2 multiple times. Finally, we have Beetleback Chief, which is also just a really cool threat and maybe a good reason to go red. It costs 2 red for a 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Getting so many bodies off of a single spell may really help us continue attacking opponents with our evasive Muldrifters or our big Gurmag Anglers while we can leave our little goblins back to block. Next, I'm going to talk about all of our interaction. Most of the rest of the deck is just ways to deal with your opponent's board state. I'll start with our red removal first. This package starts with a single copy of Arc Lightning. It costs 2 and a red for a sorcery that deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. If you get to kill 3 bodies with this card, your opponent is going to be completely broken. Next is 3 copies of Lightning Bolt, which serves as a great removal spell but can also help you win the game. It costs 1 red mana to deal 3 damage to any target at instant speed. We're also running 2 copies of Firebolt, a great way to 2-for-1 a Delver opponent. It costs 1 red mana for a sorcery to deal 2 damage to any target. You can also flash it back out of your graveyard by paying 4 and a red. Finally, we have 3 copies of Flame Slash, and while this can't go face like the rest of our burn spells, it can deal with creatures bigger than the rest of our burn spells can. It costs 1 red mana for a sorcery that deals 4 damage to target creature. Next up is our black-based removal, starting with Chainer's Edict. It costs 1 and a black for a sorcery and causes target player to sacrifice a creature. You can also flash it back out of your graveyard by paying 5 black. Once we've killed all of our opponent's small creatures with our red-based removal, the bigger ones that our burn can't deal with will get swept away by Chainer's Edicts. We're also running a single main board copy of Echoing Decay, and I love to see it here. It's awesome when you get a 2-for-1 with it. It costs 1 and a black for an instant that gives target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature -2/-2 until end of turn. Finally, our black and red removal meet halfway in the best catch-all removal spell in the format in Terminate. It costs black-red for an instant that destroys target creature. It can't be regenerated. I love how much of this deck's interaction is instant speed. I feel like Ninja of the Deep Hours is its worst enemy. Even though we have to wait until our main phase to Chainer's Edict or Flame Slash, we're usually not dead on board to a ninja. We do have one more interactive spell, although it isn't removal. It's actually targeted discard. We don't see that very often. This is Addle. It costs 1 and a black for a sorcery that allows you to choose a color. Target player reveals their hand and you choose a card of that color from it. That player discards that card. I can't wait to see how powerful this spell is. It's almost unconditional discard, and there are a lot of cards we have to answer before they enter the battlefield, so I think Addle is actually a really cool inclusion here. The rest of our deck is dedicated to finding the cards we're looking for when we need them in a lot of card filtering and card advantage. We'll start with Faithless Looting, which costs 1 red mana for a sorcery that allows you to draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You can also flash it back out of your graveyard for 2 and a red. We do have a little bit of graveyard synergy in Gurmag Angler and Firebolt, which helps Faithless Looting along, but what we'd like to pitch is our next card advantage spell in Accumulated Knowledge. Accumulated Knowledge costs 1 and a blue for an instant and allows you to draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Accumulated Knowledge in all graveyards. This is awesome. If you have 1 or 2 in your graveyard already, you can just completely refill your grip. Alright, let's have a look at this mana base, and like all 3 color mana bases in Pauper, it's a complicated one. First, we have 4 copies of Bloodfell Caves, standard Pauper duels in black and red. They enter the battlefield tapped. When they enter the battlefield, they gain you a life, and when they're untapped, you can tap them for black and red. We've also got standard Pauper duels in blue and red in Swiftwater Cliffs. They do the same thing as Bloodfell Caves, only they add blue or red mana. We have black-red Karus in Rakdos Carnariums, which help us kind of cheat on our mana, keep making our land drops, while at the same time fixing our mana and resetting some of our life gain lands to make us a little less dead in the main deck burn matchup. Along with our Carnariums, we're running 1 Izzet Karu in Izzet Boiler Works. All of these lands enter the battlefield tapped. When they enter the battlefield, you have to return a land you control to your hand. When they're untapped, they tap for blue and red or black and red respectively. Finally, our last non-basics are 4 copies of Evolving Wilds that you can tap and sacrifice to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. The basics we're fetching with Evolving Wilds come in the form of 3 swamps, 4 mountains, and a single island. We have more black and red untapped lands because we want to be able to use our removal early. Alright, let's have a look at this sideboard. First, we have 3 copies of Cartouche of Ambition. Remember I said something about that burn matchup? This is going to help a little bit. We have 2 copies of Gorilla Shaman for blowing up everything Affinity has to offer. We have 2 copies of Nihil Spellbomb because if we're in a slower matchup, we have to nuke the graveyard. We have 4 copies of Stone Rain for blowing up all of those Tron lands or some of Demir's Karus, and we have 4 copies of Kiln Fiend, which is super cool. We can kind of transform into a Kiln Fiend deck. And there you have it, Grixis Midrange by Tautau Island. We're going to take this deck into a league at twitch.tv/AnyNewProvince this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Atlantic time. We're there every Wednesday night playing competitive Pauper decks. Before I go, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday night.